Okay, we're back with the second part of the lecture here. The tide is going to turn for the British and the French here. It's now a global war at this point. The French are going to be occupied in Europe as well. That's not going to help them out. Remember that they are an absolutist monarchy and that they are struggling with finances at this point in time. We'll get into this more when we get to the French Revolution itself. The British put new leadership in place, and that kind of starts to swing things in their direction. That, along with 15,000 troops, tends to William Pitt is the new Secretary of State. This dude is crazy savvy. He's an excellent politician, excellent military historian, and really kind of gets the vibe that the British colonies are sending out there. The colonies at this point had been kind of reluctant to jump into the fray. It's more just like, okay, let's let the British regulars handle this. We're British citizens. However, at Pitt's urging, more and more people begin to take up arms in this case. And the way that he does this is basically by promising them that Britain will pay for any war debts incurred during this time period. And that really gets the colonies on board. Up until this point, they kind of didn't feel that way at all. This is going to lead to the British push up to Montreal. We have the taking of Lake George and the old Fort William Henry, leading to the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga at the southern tip of Lake Champlain. That gives the British access to the waterways up north. Um, the first major war action that the French don't have any help from the Native American tribes. The British are again destroyed at Fort Ticonderoga, even though they have higher numbers. It's just the style of warfare is not working for them. They can't quite figure out how to deal with that. What ultimately dooms the French is that their supply chain fails. They don't have the same infrastructure that the British do in North America. Remember, Britain is colonizing. That means they are taking over, they are installing British style farming, commercial farming ventures, etc. The French are really just looking at these places as trading posts, places to trade to get what they need. And so anything else that has to come from France. What's not helping is, again, the French economy is struggling, and you have really, really poor grain yields in France during this time period. And again, we'll hit that a little bit more moving forward. The bottom line is the French say basically when the house is on fire, one can't worry about the stable, meaning they're not going to have the means necessary to deal with the North American conflict as well as the conflict going on in Europe during this time period. This is kind of the beginning of the end. They're making the decision to cut their losses at this point. In addition to that happening, you also have the souring of Indian relations between the French and these Native American tribes. They're dying as well. We have a huge drought that hits North America, and so that's not helping matters either. And this is going to lead to the English signing the Treaty of Easton, leading to peace in the Ohio country in an effort to try and spare Native American lands. No settlements west of the Alleghenies. Guess what? That's not going to hold true. The British are going to go back on this, and that'll actually lead to tensions between the colonists and the British. This is going to lead to the attack on Fort Duquesne. So Canada's done. Now we're moving westward. We've allied ourselves with Native American tribes, if you're the British. And John Forbes, Forbes Avenue, Forbes Field, is going to lead the British attack. They basically carve out a road from Philly to Duquesne and set up forts every 50 miles, similar to rest stops, similar to toll roads. And believe it or not, that's actually going to be the earliest iteration of the Pennsylvania Turnpike, the first kind of east-west large-scale turnpike. And believe, if you look at this map down here, from Fort Littleton, that's in Pennsylvania, up through Bedford, Ligonier, and to Fort Duquesne. The Virginians, this is now Maryland, but at Fort Cumberland, they are actually making their way up from the north. And it's kind of a race to see who gets there first, because whoever gets that road first is going to control all the traffic that goes along there, all the trade that goes along there, and Pennsylvania ends up getting pretty wealthy off of this. Forbes and Duquesne are able to take Fort Duquesne, aka Fort Pitt, without fight, and this is going to swing the tide of the war. France is really on the run now. They have nothing to hold on to. Washington retires to a life of complete obscurity, and we never hear the name George Washington ever again in American history. Here is the fort in 1763. You can take a look there. See the general outline of the fort is meant to create sight lines, to create kill boxes in between, shooting angles, to make sure that they can't be ambushed. The problem is you can use artillery to fire on it from above. All you got to do is put some cannons on top of what is Mount Washington today. Here's what it looks like today. Many of you, I'm sure, have been here before. We have kind of the elements of Fort Duquesne here, but you can still see the outline of the initial battlements here right along the side. If you get the chance, you can walk along there. They have stones to kind of line the way, and you can check that out. Montreal, all the Iroquois nation ends up allying with the British. The Battle of Quebec, the French stronghold, it goes away. The French surrender Montreal. They are done. It's the end of fighting there. But it's not for another couple of years that we have the Treaty of Paris in 1763. Great Britain gains Canada. The French had previously divided up their territory west of the Alleghenies into two parts. All right, thanks for that announcement. The French had divided up their land into two parts. The British gained the eastern part. They give away west of the Mississippi to the Spanish just so that the British don't get their hands on it. Again, it's all about balance of power here. But French influence in North America is basically gone at this point. Here is the new map. Just to remind you, here's the old map, and here again is the new. So up to the Mississippi River, that is all Great Britain. But Britain tells the Native Americans, hey guys, we're not going to take any land west of the Alleghenies. Trust us. This is eventually going to lead to the American Revolution, which again isn't really the purview of this class, but just to give you a heads up. Britain reneges on their deal to give money to the colonies in return for any war debt or war costs that was there. And in fact, not only are they not paying the colonies, they're also going to ask the colonies to pay for the war via a variety of acts, sugar, stamp, tea, etc., etc. Colonists in Great Britain interacted, and this is really what leads to the American Revolution. Great Britain looks at the colonies as a way to print money, a moneymaker for them. The colonies exist to serve the crown, whereas the colonists say, hey, we're not some random group of people that you conquer like, everywhere else. We are British citizens and we deserve to be treated as such. And that ultimately is the fundamental difference between the two groups that just can't figure it out. British citizens or colonists. This is going to lead to a land grab. The British had extended their forces well beyond the Alleghenies during the fighting the Ohio country, and people look around and say, okay, well, here's all this new land. I think I'll take what I can get, in a clear violation of the Treaty of Easton. And so this ends the the French and Indian War in about 30 minutes or so. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Again, this is meant to be one part of the 7 Years' War, one part of that idea that Europe is now fighting over the balance of power, and that fighting is extending far beyond just the limitations of Europe itself. Hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you later.